What's going on, Ambitious Vet? Welcome to a brand new season of the Ambitious Vet podcast with Marine Corps combat veteran and founder of Crayons Ready to Eat, Frank Manteau. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet. We believe if you desire more than you have to become more in the process. My name is Chris Hoffman, Marine Corps combat veteran turned passion-driven social impact and personal and professional development leader. On this show, I dive into the trenches with big thinking and conscious veterans who know what it takes to not only pay the bills after the military, but really live with a sense of purpose, satisfaction, and career fulfillment we all desire most after financial stability is no longer a challenge to overcome. Ambitious Vet, if you haven't already, grab your pen and paper. It's time to gain the golden grenades needed to break through your fear barriers to live a life of purpose with passion. Let's get it. What's going on, Ambitious Vet? It has been way too long. Excited to be here with you again. I hope you're as excited as I am to be with you. Really, we have spent the past 2 months diving into the trenches and really just seeking to understand what is the next steps for this whole movement we've created since the beginning of 2017. And, it's been exciting. And the most, exciting thing was definitely me stepping back, refueling, relaxing, going 70 episodes in week by week. I think we only missed a couple weeks over the past year and a half of doing the 70 episodes. And if you don't know, I do these in real time every week. I don't do a whole podcast day where I make them back to back to back. I really want it to be authentic. I am recording these right after I interview the guests, and I want to make sure that you guys get everything, the authenticity, the raw emotion, the vulnerable connection that it's going to take for all of us that are ambitious veterans out of the uniform and understand that, interview prep, resume building, networking, all that is great, no doubt about it, but it doesn't equal a sense of purpose, satisfaction, and real fulfillment out of the uniform. And we are excited to bring this to you in this brand new season. Now, if you haven't already participated with our research study, the Ambitious Vet Network is really innovating the veteran community in 2020, and we need your help and teamwork along the way. We're looking for 100 or more veterans who have been retired or separated from the military service for at least 3 years to participate in our qualitative research study, which will result in us being able to better understand your commitments, challenges, and desires and dreams of where you want to go after you've already achieved financial stability. See, we both know there's no shortage of immediate transitional resources and programs available for veterans upon their transition from the military, which is critical and it is beneficial. However, the challenge we have found and where the Ambitious Vet Network will be focusing in 2020 is on veterans who have been out of the military for 3+ years. They've achieved financial stability, but realize that resume building, interview prep doesn't equal that life satisfaction, career fulfillment, and a sense of purpose. Now, here's our goal. We want to identify what veterans' needs, want, and desires are after financial stability is no longer something to overcome. Over the last 3 years, we have been successful in building one of the world's largest personal and professional development online community of veterans in 20+ countries, and we're excited to reveal a new problem to solve, but more importantly, to provide a solution that makes a lasting change in veteran development. So if you are looking to do something bigger than yourself in 2020 and want to help participate in this research study, the links to participate and the 10-minute survey will be in the show notes below. Excited to start this next season with you and grow in the next couple months with you through these interviews. So I look forward to seeing your survey come in. And without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce today's guest, Frank Manteau. He's owner and the craftsman of Kamikaze Woodworks and the creator behind the joke becoming a reality, the CRE, or in other words, Crayons Ready to Eat. United States Marine Corps veteran, he also does a great job inside of this interview, just explaining about what it takes to make it happen and how, your military philosophies and strategies apply to winning in life after you take the uniform off. He also explains about how he continued to fall back on what he was familiar with, but almost falling back for good, to now being someone that has already climbed the corporate ladder in the heavy duty agricultural industry, to doing what a lot of us veterans do, which is go get jobs and security work, bouncing, stuff like that, to now finding his purpose and allowing Marines to not feel bad about finally eating crayons. In this case, chocolate crayons. Without further ado, ambitious vet, let's go ahead and dive into the trenches with Frank Manteau. So tell us a little bit more about your background, and also, tell us an interesting fact that very little people know about Frank.
Well, thank you for having me on here and the opportunity to do on this. There's been a lot of things that's gone on that kind of, I've stepped away from a lot of things, but I kind of get back in the swing of stuff. So me, I'm a redneck from the backwoods of Ohio. Grew up in a small town with a population 951 folks, and there was nothing back there. Threw away a full ride scholarship at Pittsburgh Art Institute. 5 days after I graduated high school, I left to go to boot camp in the United States Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was boom, 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 jump done. And spent 7.5 years in the Marine Corps between Marine Corps security forces, infantry, coaching recruits on the rifle, back in the infantry, and was there through 9/11. And, that there just totally shook up the whole world. It's like everything I've been training for the past, 5.5, 6 years, that here we go. And got my back messed up. Through all my time, my time in the Marine Corps is different than the time in the Marine Corps now. You push, you charge, you keep going, you don't complain, you don't whine, you don't bitch, you don't nothing, and you just go through. And it took it on my body, and we're on a 7-mile hump. I collapsed, paralyzed from the waist down. Found out I had a lot of discs in my back that were messed up, and ended up having to choose either get out or stay in. And I had 2 young kids at the time, so I chose to go ahead and get out and get my honorable discharge after 7.5 years in the beloved Corps.
Wow. And at that point, Frank, were you like a lifer? Because some of us, we get in, man, and we're just like, this is what I wanted to do. Were you at that point before that happened? Were you planning on staying in the Marine Corps for 20, or what did that landscape look like?
Oh yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. Like I said, I had nothing back where I was from, and I had 2 kids, and I enjoyed the circus. Well, I should say I joined the people in the circus.
That's awesome,
but
man.
that was the goal, was to try to push the 20. But God had His plan, and that's where it is.
Yeah, I love that that perspective, because I'm sure it took some time to kind of unravel that perspective and stuff like that. So that's awesome. So you injure your back. We did one thing we're doing new this season, 2 Ambitious Vets, is making sure we're setting up pre-interviews with all these guests so we can really get a familiarity of what these high level, high performing veterans bring to these interviews. And one thing that Frank was diving in is there was a coming to Jesus moment rather after his back injury. And Frank, could you dive into that coming to Jesus conversation that we were talking about, that had you kind of see the 2 paths? And reason why I want you to explain is because I'm sure there's a lot of devil dogs and probably other branches of service that can relate to this story.
So, like I said, I was back in the time where, you got away with some stuff that you did, and you could be disrespectful to an officer and still cut that fine line, or call out a staff NCO. But when you call out the wrong staff NCO, you kind of push the borderline. So for me, I ended up getting going through the medical, hitting my light duty time, getting out. I'm like, look, we're getting ready to go. I want to go. I've already spent time in the sandbox back in '98 whenever I was over in Kuwait. And 90% of the Marines there have never been anywhere, not seen anything, even the staff NCOs. So went into the sergeant major's office, and they were not wanting me to freaking, like, look, you're a liability. You're not going to deploy. We're going to put you somewhere else. I'm like, no. I'm like, I've been there. I'm going to go. And it started getting heated. And of course, Sergeant Major had transferred over from supply to the infantry. Everybody knew it. Everybody talked about it. I'm the one that said it. And I was like, you know what, Sergeant Major? I was like, you know what? I'm sorry that you decided to transfer from the supply to the infantry to do something with your freaking career and actually put something on your chest and say you did something. Yeah, that was the wrong move. So I freaking got chewed out, kicked out. Staff sergeant got his ass chewed out. Next morning had a freaking, full on inspection, camis, press, knowledge, passed everything flying colors. He had 3 vanilla envelopes on his desk. He's like, look, I'm going to put up with your ass. If I got to put up with your ass, I'm going to make your ass a living hell. You're either going to sit here and I will do everything within my power to freaking medically discharge your ass, bust you down in rank, take freaking 4 months of half of your pay. And he's like, or you can go right now, freaking sit over an S3, take an honorable discharge with an early 6 months out, and freaking with an REF4 with ever having a chance to reenlist. Said I had 2 small kids. So it was like, fight it, push it, do what I wanted to do, take care of the Marines that I know that that haven't been over there, seen dealt with the country, dealt with the culture. And I chose to go ahead and get out on an honorable discharge without ever having a chance to reenlist. And when I got out, they decided to start televising this shit and freaking putting people, just putting it right in the face of the freaking public. And it made me itch more and more that I was like, I need to be over there. I went right back to the recruiter, tried to freaking figure out a way to get rid of that REF4 to get my butt back in. Couldn't do it.
Yeah. And that process had to be hard, right? So like you doing near 7.5 years in the Corps, doing that build up and then seeing your brothers and sisters over there serving, doing all that stuff. I mean, I even right now with the current events going on over in, Iraq and Iran and stuff like that, don't want to get too political on the subject here, but even sometimes you watch that stuff and you're just like, what would I do to get back into the trenches, man? So definitely know those feelings, but kind of walk us through the process of what it was like to kind of, in other words, just kind of forced out of the Corps. What was that experience like getting out of the Marine Corps, rehabbing yourself and creating work and opportunity out of the uniform for you?
Well, for me, it was rough. I was stationed in North Carolina at the time, and I did what most veterans do at the time. Whenever things like that happen, I went back to where I was from. Went back to the freaking small podunk area, and life sucked. I didn't have a lot of support. I didn't have a lot of family. I don't deal with my family or whatever else. Current wife at the current time was freaking having doing her things and creating problems and everything else. Within less than 6 months after I was out, I already decided that I'm freaking getting a divorce. 6 months after that, I walk out, file for the divorce, trying to get work. I'm bouncing around different things, security, private investigative work, bouncing at freaking bars and strip clubs, just to try to figure out what I'm doing. Because as infantry, it's like either you be a cop, security, or a hired assassin, and I really wasn't fitting that bill. So it took a lot on me, and where I was from, there's not a lot of veteran support. There's not a lot of that type of community. And out there, it's like, yeah, you got the VFWs and American Legions, but it's a place to go freaking get drunk and drink. And I'm like, that's not my cup of tea. I'd already dealt with that in the Marine Corps. It's like, nah, I'm getting ready to be a single dad. So I alienated anything and everything from the military. I cut it off and I stepped back, and I bounced, from couple different jobs, this and that, got full custody of my kids, no support, no family, no nothing. And I stayed back there in Ohio for 10 years. And it was just, it's like, what am I doing? What's going on here? And finally, it wasn't until 2013 that I decided, you know what? Tired of doing this, trying to doing that, tired of the cold weather, tired of the freaking bipolar, things that are happening, tornadoes, floods, rains, everything else. And I flipped the coin, dude. I literally flipped the coin to decide where I was going.
Mm.
It was either Paris, Kentucky or San Diego.
Mm.
Single dad with 2 teenage kids. And the coin took me out here to California. No job, no vehicle, didn't know anybody, had no clue where I was going to do, what was going to happen. Hopped on a plane, $4,000 in my name, and landed in Hotel Circle.
Wow.
And hit the ground running. And I'm here 7 years later.
That's a pretty awesome story. You went from Paris, Kentucky, where you could probably buy some good property and a 3,000 square foot home for like $120,000 or so, to San Diego, where I think our place out here and where we're at in San Diego is, I think it's around 800 square foot, and we pay over $2,000 for it a month renting. So yeah, man, I get the grind, and I really just acknowledge you for doing that, because that's not easy to do. Go through all of those processes, different jobs, not really knowing what you're an expert in or like what you specialize in or anything like that, and just pin dropping yourself in San Diego and stuff like that. So let's kind of move back just a little bit. Let's like talk about what you learned from those couple years going back to your familiar, because I hear this from a lot of ambitious vets like yourself that are making an impact now after you've kind of gone through that phase of just trying to figure it out. But what did you learn through those years, Frank?
It was a matter of, for me, I had kids, and it was, trying to show to them that, what, actions speak louder than words. You've got to, make things happen. And there's been some actions that I've made some big mistakes on, and it's just a matter of learning from those mistakes and learning from those actions of what you're going to do. It's a matter of what you do with the information you're given. It's not where you go with it, what you do with it, per se, but it's how you come out in the end of it and pushing through it and getting, up off your feet and taking the action to make things happen and get things done. But it's, for me, a lot of it's just, it was jumbled around, so there's not really one thing that I took away from it. It was a lot of massive things, Like I said, I cut my family off, so I had no family support. So I'm trying to, raise 2 kids with no family, no grandparents, no relatives, no nothing, trying to figure out the work, trying to figure this out. So it's like, figure it out as you go. And that's a lot of things in the military, you figure out as you go. And the military gave me that opportunity to do that, back in the civilian life. Is like, okay, on a dime's, decision, boom, here you go. Figure it out as you go, make a decision. The only wrong decision is no decision at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I love how you brought the philosophy from the Corps into civilian life. Like really just adapting and overcoming is what I'm hearing, and like just making it happen. I mean, that's a lot like how I did it over here as well. Went into a lot of private security sectors, worked some bouncing nightclubs downtown San Diego, and just found ways to at least get the bills paid. Why like kind of floundered in the water per se to kind of figure out what stuck, and what kind of gave me some passion. So I'm going to tee this back over to you, Frank. I mean, what were some of you've already mentioned a couple of them. What were some landmines that kind of stopped you when you came out here to San Diego with $400 in your pocket? And like, what was it that actually had you be like, yeah, this is what I wanted to start doing?
Well, for me, we'll jump back. One of the fun facts that a lot of people don't know about me is at the age of 13, I learned how to dig graves. So it's like, yeah, you get that fun little, you get that knowledge and stuff like that, but not everybody wants to actually do, go out and dig graves. And, So coming out of California, there's not very many cemeteries that are close by like there is in those podunk towns, spread around here and everything else. So that wasn't an option out here.
Not a trade.
So, but coming out here, I had many different jobs between the security, between being a volunteer firefighter, working in the automotive industry. And I grew up in the backwoods. You were backyard mechanics. You learned as you go. You knew the part numbers. You went into Napa. They said this, blew that, and everything else. And back there, I jumped in the automotive, switched over doing, some more automotive stuff. And then I came out here and it's like, what am I going to do? And I did one of the weirdest things is I was in Hotel Circle. I started hitting, I had a organization called Able Disable. It was a veteran, group. And I think they're still in operation where they help, veterans, that are homeless or, in the verge of being homeless, stuff like that, to get on their feet, get them, your resume set up, everything else. Mind you, I had nothing. I brought nothing out here but a suitcase, had the 2-bedroom, or had a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story, freaking quarter-acre lot, freaking house, full, everything set up, shoved in storage, and just brought out suitcases. So didn't even think of freaking, bringing, having everything set up. Went there, got the laptop set up, and started hitting places, hitting the ground running, going boom, 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 boom. They hooked me up with a bus pass, learned about the transit system out here. First time ever really dealing with transit system. And yeah, that was an experience in itself. Sure. But it wasn't until I got out here in February 2013. It was on February 22nd. I was out, went to the local Walmart out around Passion Valley, Mission Valley, or wherever it was, and saw somebody that I knew. I thought I knew from a side view, and I yelled out her name. Lo and behold, it was them. It was the guy that freaking lived in base housing with, that his wife helped my ex-wife at the time get acclimated while we went on deployment. And so they invited me to come out here to the little, town of Lakeside, and we stayed with them. Now you're putting 2 adults, 2 young kids, 2 teenagers, and myself in a rinky-dinky, and I'm living off my VA disability compensation at the time of like 630 some bucks a month. No job, no nothing, trying to scramble, figure it out. Wow. So it was finally, that was in the end of February, beginning of March. It wasn't until May that I got off the wrong bus stop and landed at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I was like, well, I've done automotive. Let's go in here and see what I can do. So I walk in, ask if he's hiring. He's like, no, I'm not hiring. I'm like, well, I still want to have an interview with you. He's like, I'm not looking for anybody. I said, I understand that. I get it. Not a problem. But I still would like to have an interview with you. Let you know what what I'm capable of, what I'm doing. I just moved here, single dad, trying to get things situated. I have no desire to go back to Ohio. I want to stay here and make it stick. It was like, all right, be here Monday morning at 8:30. I said, hey, I know how it works on Mondays, everything else. Can we do 9? It gives you time to get your morning stuff situated and everything else. He said, perfect. Went in there, hired me on the spot. So I was doing part-time counter, part-time driver, working at O'Reilly Auto Parts. 3 months later, they're like, 2.5 months later, it's like, hey, we got an RSS position open. I did what I had to do, learned the system real quick. I knew the parts, learned the, the different part numbers that they had compared to the old part numbers that I knew I had in my head from Ohio, and, the changing over to the new vendors and stuff. But I was under my 3-month probation, so I couldn't get the position. Whatever's fine. 8 months later, another RSS position comes open. Gave me that. At the meantime, the commercial department was freaking failing, helping getting that situated, trying to find people to get that running. All of a sudden, freaking a month later, the district manager pulls me into the office and offers me the assistant manager position at the store. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I've hardly ever seen this guy, you know what I mean? But, hey, he knew who I was. So within a month of being in management, I got jumped into assistant manager position. Went through, and freaking killed it. Out here in Lakeside, we got a lot of agricultural, heavy duty, freaking tractor trailers, the backhoes, the excavators, all that stuff. I knew that. I grew up, like I said, I grew up in a small town. We had coal mines and freaking we're out there working on backhoes and tractors and stuff like that. So it's like it's my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Found out that O'Reilly's had a heavy duty agricultural department that this area wasn't tapping into. So I decided to talk to everybody, push it, bring in the agriculture heavy duty equipment, and ended up the freaking commercial department guy, the girl that was there, she ended up going, to a teaching job, so she quit, and we had nobody run a commercial department. We were pushing freaking like maybe $3,600, or $36,000 a month in commercial, and so I'm running assistant manager and I'm running the commercial department. Finally, within freaking 4 months, sales are already exceeding freaking 50, 60,000 a month.
Wow.
Because we went out there, I hit the companies, went out on sales calls with the store manager, proved them I knew my knowledge. Because in the heavy duty equipment, it's not a matter of who you know, it's a matter of what you know, and you prove to them that you can find the stuff. So
resourcefulness, yeah,
just going to get the resources. And finally, I was like, you know what? Give the system manager somebody else. Let me run the commercial department. So I ran the commercial department, and within the year's time of the time I started it, we were pushing $100,000 a month in sales. Yeah,
not very bad, not bad at all.
Yeah. So
you brought that sector inside of O'Reilly Auto Parts that weren't necessarily there. You came in, you saw an opportunity that wasn't necessarily there, took the initiative, which is what, I find that all military, active duty veterans and even mil spouses have, right? And you brought it to an organization. So what happened after that?
Well, I met somebody, moved to 29 Palms, got married, ended up taking over a store manager position at Desert Hot Springs. She ended up having a stroke, became a different person, left, and I moved back down here. So yeah, that was one of those, learn from your mistakes. Don't get with somebody and then shortly afterwards jump into it. So I moved back here. The store manager that was, that gave me the opportunity to hire decided, his son moved to Kentucky. He went out there and visited, liked it. So he decided he's going to move out to Kentucky. Well, I'm back. They're bouncing me around to different stores to try to clean up stores so they can find a place for me because they're not going to butt me down from the assistant store manager position. So whenever he made the decision he was moving, I'm like, all right, tomorrow I'm going to be down at Lakeside. No, we need you here. I'm like, no, I want the Lakeside store. That's my store. That's where I started. I brought the stuff in there. I know what's going on. I know the customers. I'm going there tomorrow. And lo and behold, the next day I went down there. And 3 months later, he freaking transferred, he transferred out to Kentucky. I took over the store and the company shifted. The company changed. It turned out to be, instead of, family oriented, hiring quality people that know parts and understand parts, it was about shaving as much, money to expense and throwing money at other places. And everybody's just getting treated like a number. And I started getting treated like a number. Couldn't bring anybody in. So I was like, you know what? I'm done. I just, they're not wanting to be, do this, do everything else. I was a store manager making freaking almost 16, close to $17 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no. You guys are freaking you guys are freaking spending once a year, you're sending every store manager in the country, every territory sales manager, every district manager, every regional manager, trainer, this, everything else. You're paying for their flights, you're paying for their hotels, you're paying for this big old conference for 3 days in this facility, have people speak and talk and this, that, food, entertainment, everything else. You don't want to pay the freaking team members? I was like, no, done. So switched jobs, went to work for a hydraulic hose company as territory sales, cashed out my 401k from O'Reilly's, and I'm like, I got to find something that I like to do.
Mm.
Well, I grew up on the farms. We built stuff out of, anything and everything. Grew up in wood shop in high school. And in all my years, when I was out in freaking Kuwait, made benches out of pallets, made furniture to freaking sit outside the barracks and everything else. The hooches and everything else to freaking
Yeah.
sit down and enjoy stuff. Coffee tables. Made it like freaking enjoy. Got there a freaking sandbox. You know, so I'm like, I really enjoyed doing wood. So I spent $3,000 on woodworking tools on Craigslist. Shoved them in the backyard of my apartment in a 12 by 10 backyard under a 10 by 10 easy up, and just started tinkering, building, skills and everything else up. The other job didn't pan out. The things that they were promising, it kind of shifted. Went to do their, where they were sending me to different conferences, Vegas, Texas, and coming back, giving feedback of the new things coming up. And it was just like, yep, nope, this ain't happening. So what do? Quit there
Mm.
and immediately started Kamikaze Woodworks. Now, true freaking military fashion, you got to have a name that freaking associates with your past. So Kamikaze Marines were kind of crazy, right? Of course, wood, I'm going to be dealing with wood, and I spelt works a little bit differently for two reasons. I'm a redneck. My grammar ain't that great, so we got to spell it awkward. Two, when you put, the word we in there, it takes me and that person to be able to create, the project. So hence Kamikaze Woodworks was born. And I had no clients, no nothing, no build ups, till two teenage kids, one out of school, one getting ready to, graduate in the next year and a half, and just jumped into it. Just boom, pushed, drove, got the content, got the freaking stuff set up, started reaching out, networking. Social media, I still don't get it. It's like people want to see what you're doing, but for me, it's like I don't have time to move this, move that, edit this, build it, make it, take pictures. There you go. I'm done.
But if I could add right there, Frank, is like one thing I've noticed about you and for the listeners here is like, Frank, you're everywhere. All the networking events in San Diego, I run into you, Bunker Labs, any networking event that's targeted towards, just veterans. And I'm not just talking about veteran networking events on how do we increase disability. Like you're inside of the veteran networking events that are trying to move bigger things forward above, like how do we just get financial stability. So he may not be always on social media, but Frank here, every networking event I go to, as far as labs or anything else supporting veterans that are up to bigger things than just like trying to make money off Uncle Sam, rather, he's always there networking, figuring out how he can contribute and stuff like that. So you make time to do some cool stuff, man. But go ahead and continue.
Yeah. And, that's whenever, right at that time that I started the business, that's whenever I got back into the veteran community. Like I said, I was leery. I stepped away from it, and I didn't have any involvement into it. So the one thing that I can say to anybody that's getting out or has recently got out, don't do what I did. Do not step away from freaking your brothers and sisters, because, and I've done it recently. We get in our heads, we get in, our own mindset, and, that we think we can do it ourselves. We think we can do it alone. And like I said, I did it recently. I kind of shut a lot of people out, and I'm getting back into that, so don't, I'm human. We slip back, we get in our own heads, and we've got our own demons, and just matter how we come out on the other side, but stay plugged in, find your tribe. Don't go and try to find, say, well, this guy's in this tribe and, your friend's in this and everything else. Go around to the different events. Find, the different network events, whether it's Vet Together, whether it's Bunker Labs, whether it's freaking, the Rosie Network, there are different things, whether it's, Triple B Adventures, things like that. Here, these are the ones here in San Diego. And there's a lot of other ones that everywhere else you look, you just got to freaking look for it. Stay plugged in. Find your tribe that fits to what you want and what you're looking for out of whatever it is you are doing. So took me some time and got into it, met the Marine rapper, and he's the one that brought me into, got me connected with Bunker Labs. Ended up doing a project for him, connected with him on social media. Took about a year for me to get in the project. Made him a 21-inch wooden crayon. and put on it, grunt fuel. Mind you, he was, a journalist, course, photographer, all that stuff and everything. But, you know, what Marine nowadays doesn't hasn't embraced the joke of us being crayon eaters. Now, mind you, I got out. We weren't called crayon eaters. We were called jarheads, grunts, ground pounders, bullet sponges, all this and everything else, but never was a crayon eater. So that happened within the last, I would say, 9, 7, 8 years or whatever that came out. So in that meantime, of connecting with the Marine Rapper, I had ended up getting, commissioned to work with the local school. My son was in the marching band. He was dating the color guard captain, and they needed somebody to build a giant freaking fake frame for them to use for a prop for one of their shows. Now, I'm not going to freaking go out and make an old fancy frame. So I just cut a piece of plywood out, made it a 4 foot by 6 foot high freaking frame, and printed out pictures of a frame and started coloring it in, jigsawed the outer edge. Started with markers. And markers bled. They didn't match up. They get a new one and it didn't blend in. So I was like, whatever. So I switched over to crayons. I started coloring, put one on my mouth, grabbed another color, and I literally started gnawing on the daggone thing.
You're a Marine, of course.
Exactly. So it's like, all righty, I heard this joke. I'm like, maybe there is something behind us Marines being crayon eaters here. So I jumped into it. Curiosity killed the cat. And it's like, is there actually truly an edible crayon out there? Spent 3 months researching, found a company in Singapore that made chocolate crayons that were square, elongated, but they had in the description, they took out the scent and taste of chocolate and sugar to deter children from eating them. I'm like, oh, hell no. I want people to eat this thing. I know nothing about chocolate. I have no clue. But in the mental Rolodex, whenever I took over as a store manager and the other store manager left, one of the team members brought in these homemade peanut butter truffles that were better than any Reese cup I'd ever had in my life. Found out she went to school to be a pastry chef for a couple of semesters. Life hit in. She had to stop, started working. Anyhow, so that was in the mental Rolodex. So, of course, I called her and I'm like, you still like doing chocolates and stuff? She's like, yeah. I'm like, God, I got a task for you. I need you to make chocolate right. She's like, I don't know how. Well, what about pastry school? She's like, we didn't go over that, and never has I ever thought of that. I'm like, well, can you try? She was like, I'll try. That's all I needed to hear. 3 weeks later, she's sending me a video on September 12th of 2017 that she actually made chocolate right. Alrighty, here we go. Now we can do it. So spent at least, from September to May, playing around on and off, making, looking for molds, looking the way to, the colors and figuring it out, this and everything else. I was talking to a buddy of mine and was talking to him about this, and he was, he kind of helped come up with the name of, the company. I was like, all right, we can do that. Now let's build onto it. Let's see what we can do. So we decided to call it Crayons Ready to Eat. Doubled as the military's meals of MREs, meals ready to eat. Pushed out the freaking packaging, started out as a box. And then finally, whenever Raymond got down here to San Diego and started the Bunker Labs, the Veteran in Residence program, I saw he posted and I'm like, dude, how long are you in San Diego? I want to get these projects to you. He's like, I'm here now. I'm like, all right, cool. Invited me down to the freaking WeWorks building, gave him his, the stuff, started talking shop, talking, military, and talking about what I do, and within the woodworking. And he was like, so what else you got going on? He was like, you're the type of guy that's got, it seems like you got other things going on. And I was like, yeah, I got this idea. I'm working on, trying to freaking make crayons that actually write and bring the joke to reality. And I told it to him, he freaking just lost his damn mind. He called me to action. So freaking 2 weeks or a week later was like, come down here, let's talk business, let's talk this, see where you're at, bring some down, let me try it. They had a bunker broom. So I went down there to the event and brought him down, had the event. Afterwards, went up to the upstairs, waited for him to get things cleaned up. Samantha Bonilla and Mike Sowers was up there in the room. And all of a sudden, Samantha's like, hey, Mike, remind me to pick up some crayons before we do our next photo shoot. And that's when the light bulb hit in. I'm like, do I or don't I? All right, here we go. So I'm like, I got something better for you. I said, I got chocolate crayons that actually write. Her eyes freaking lit up. Freaking let her try it. She wrote on it. She took a bite out of it. No problem. She's a Marine. She literally just gnawed on that thing with no hesitation. I could have been fooling with her. I could have been, like, it really could have been whacked. You know what I mean? They didn't know, but she jumped into it. She enjoyed the taste of it. She mainly put out her phone, did a little video, sent it to all of her Marine, female models. And I'm like, we need these for the next photo shoot. I had no business. I had nothing done, no clue, no real packaging done up, just an image idea. Like, okay, here we go. Raymond comes up, he tries it. They invite me down to their, to have a meeting to go over stuff. All of a sudden, that changes to they want me to pitch it to their lunch and learn. Oh shit! What do I do?
Yeah.
Just like military fashion, adapt and overcome. Got on there, freaking. He sent me the message 2 days before the freaking meeting. At night, I jumped on, got the website, threw up some information, got Cassandra over here, made a freaking several batches of the crayons, had her now fiance, figuring out the mathematics, the weights, the freaking nutrition facts, and this and everything else, and freaking busting them out. No packaging, no wraps, no nothing. Had them wrapped in wax paper. Went down there, pitched it, set up social medias. By the time I left there 3 hours later, we already had 100 followers on Instagram.
Wow.
It's like, okay. And so it's jump, I never thought I'd be in a world of crayons. No clue. I don't know nothing. But it's just the idea of my plan A is the woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is my opinion. I don't have a plan B. My opinion is if you have a plan B, you've already decided plan A is going to fail. So crayons came in. That was just an added thing to it that shifted to another opportunity to, have something, to do, something going, something keep me busy, whatever else. So we're going at it, and I get, the opportunity to be a part of the Bunker Labs. And I originally went in there for the woodworking, just try to understand, get the video, get the, the social media to get, the growth on that and everything else, because that's, that still was my plan A. And it's like where, hold on a second. Okay. Sorry about that.
Fine.
And so going through there, getting what I can learn, and more of the events going on, more people hearing about the crayons, more things are pushing out. We finally, learn from getting with the networking events, get connected with Flossie Hall, get connected with Steve Coons and things like this to be able to figure out what do we have to do, because we made the mistake and was like, okay, let's jump online, let's sell these things. Well, within 3 weeks, we had a phone call from the county telling us we had to stop. We're in violation of this, and this. We're almost on the verge of being fined $10,000. It was like, oh crap. Thank goodness that the knowledge from Flossie and everything and the county was nice enough to give us a warning and walk us through the steps, what it took to actually be a company dealing with food. So applied for the cottage food permit, went through the process, had to take, the food handlers, had to freaking, get, a couple other things situated, had to change up to where we had a good, a packaging of sorts, get the kitchen inspected, get a home kitchen, set up, get the stuff they needed, have the health inspector come out and inspect it. And then finally, March of 2019, we finally were given our opportunity to have the cottage food permit and actually turn it into a legitimate local business to be able to sell direct sales. The problem there is And the heat out here, and anywhere you go in the heat, chocolate melts when you're out at the table sitting around freaking trying to sell stuff. So farmers markets in the summer and things like that just wasn't working. And a lot of Marines in military don't want to drive from freaking Pendleton and down. And we're getting bombarded with message after message after message. When can you ship? When can you ship? We had a guy in Poland, UK, Afghan, freaking, many different places. We're already getting international messages, freaking, when can you ship? Can you ship it out here? We're like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
So we've dialed back on the posting aspect, and because every time we post 10 to 15 messages with when can you ship, are you going to be able to ship, or they would go to the website, try to order, get aggravated because they can't get it shipped to them. So it's like, what do we got to do now? Well, we need to get into a commercial facility. We need to get FDA meet FDA guidelines, this and everything else. So right now, the woodworking is, it's those winter seasons, holidays, stuff like that. So it has its ups and downs. I'm scraping by, barely, making things situated. And like I said, I went through my own little funk recently. So
Which we all do sometimes. Which we all do sometimes, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I want to come in real quick. I mean, if you guys don't know who Marine Rapper is, Flossie Hall, Stephen Kuhn, stepping to Andrew O'Brien's spot and is running one of the largest veteran entrepreneur Facebook groups online. Tons of business experience. Definitely, if you're not already following him, follow him. Flossie Hall. She started a company called Healthy Mama, didn't she, Frank?
Yep.
And made in 12 months gross revenue of over $1 million. So she knows a lot of how regulated the food market and food industry is. And Marine Rapper, what's his real name?
Raymond
Lott. So he's one of the most connected guys, one of the city leaders for Bunker Labs. So Ambitious Vet, if you're not plugged into, Bunker Labs, it's one of the best, most connected veteran entrepreneur incubators that I've been able to come across that showcases some of the most high performing veteran entrepreneur minded people in the world, and they're spreading out nationwide in major chapters. So just Google them and you'll find them. But I just acknowledge you, Frank, for being able to identify the people, not try to do it all yourself. I was reading a devotional this morning that was talking about how wise counsel keeps all plans moving, right? And I think that a lot of us, we think we have all the answers, and it isn't until we hit those roadblocks and be like, hey, who's the expert inside of that? And asking the right questions. So you've been able to do that. So before we dive into, the 3 gold grenades that you can drop and sum all this up, man, because you have definitely done the work. That's what I love about your story. You've done the work and you've definitely failed your way forward. And, you've proven the Marine Corps philosophy, right? That you can do a lot with a little, which is, what I believe all Marines can do. Where can people find more about Crayons Ready to Eat, man? Because it sounds like there is a big demand for this. It sounds like inventory and fulfillment is kind of the next step, is what I'm hearing. Where can people go learn more about Crayons Ready to Eat if they want to either connect, support, help? Because I believe that collaboration helps all veterans win out of the uniform versus this competitive scarcity mindset. So where can people go and connect with you and help move Crayons Ready to Eat forward, man? Because it sounds like there's a huge demand for it.
Well, right now, of course, we're on the interweb. We've got crayonsreadytoeat.com. It's the main website. We're on Instagram at Crayons Ready to Eat. We're on Facebook, Crayons Ready to Eat. Just do it. Just go and jump in Google, type in Crayons Ready to Eat, and you'll find us. Right now, we're, like I said, we're dialing things back and everything else. In end of February, beginning of March, we're going to be launching a Kickstarter campaign. We need about $50,000 to be able to get every certification, every regulation, to get, equipment, to get rental, cost of rental for a commercial kitchen for at least 4 to 6 months for the time for the licensing, the certifications, everything to come down from the Sacramento, the FDA and all this and everything else in order for us to get to that next level to be able to ship. So get on our website, get on our email list, and just keep an eye out but definitely more than likely it's going to be closer to the beginning of March that we're going to jump a Kickstarter campaign so we can get to that next level and be able to ship these across the world. And then as for the woodworking, Kamikaze Woodworks with WERKS, Instagram, Facebook, on the interweb, kamikazewoodworks.com. And, like I said, it's hard. It's not easy. No one said it was going to be easy. It's just a matter of you got to make it happen.
Yeah. And you definitely have. You've definitely shown that you can do that. So what could you leave ambitious vets that are listening to this episode, no matter where they're at in the world today? What would be 3 golden grenades that you could drop in right here that's going to help them break through their fear barriers and become more and just create more of that life satisfaction, sense of purpose in life? And yeah, really just don't forget like the sense of fulfillment, right? That you were saying that you were desperately looking for when you got out. So what would be 3 golden grenades to help fill those gaps for ambitious vets listening right now?
Like I said in the beginning, find your tribe. Find out what you're passionate about. Secondly is take action. Without action, there's no reaction. There's nothing. So you have to take that action and jump and make it happen. And lastly, I would have to say, don't listen to everybody that's around, telling you can't do this, you can't do that, or whatever else. Whatever, if you put your mind to it, everything we do, no matter what it is, no matter what your circumstance is, no matter what you've gone through or what your family life is or what you're surrounded with, everything else, it's a choice. You have a choice, do it or not do it.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. That is amazing stuff, because it is all a choice and we get to choose our life daily, man. That's a good reminder even for myself. Thanks for dropping that enlightenment. So awesome. So here's Frank Manteau from Crayons Ready to Eat, Kamikaze WeWorks. And I just want to thank you for coming on to the Ambitious Vet Show, Frank, because you are a living example of an ambitious vet that's out of the uniform, that wasn't satisfied with just paying the bills, but you looked at where was the next step towards elevating your impact in the uniform, out of the uniform. And more importantly, you've done the work. You're in the trenches. You're doing the grunt work needed to figure out where your gaps are to make Crayons Ready to Eat a household name, which I'm excited for. Man, I'm ready to start chomping on these things. I've tried them. They're amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised if you weren't partnered up with Meals Ready to Eat at some point, where people are in combat chewing on those crayons in combat somewhere.
Oh, we would love to be in that opportunity. We would love that opportunity, but like I said, one step at a time.
Yeah. Love it, brother. Thanks for the reminder. Thanks for being on the show. And until next time, hold the vision and trust the process. Take care.
Take care.
Well, there you have it, Ambitious Vet, episode number 71 with Frank Manteau. If you haven't already, subscribe, rate, review the podcast. Feedback is what allows anything to improve in life, and we want to improve right beside you. So take 10 minutes, subscribe, rate, review the podcast so we can continue to build this momentum of one of the largest personal and professional development communities online, and help us get to the point where we can actually be bringing in small fire teams in your local cities. Do your part, and we promise we'll do ours. Lastly, we know that you're warrior made, but to become passion driven, utilize just one golden grenade you heard today, and you're going to find your life moving in a more fulfilling and impactful direction. Ambitious Vet, let's go get it.